My name is Linda, and I'm 52 years old. For the past 30 years, I've been married to my husband, James, and we have 3 children together. Our oldest son, Marcus, is 28, our daughter, Lily, is 25, and our youngest, Jake, just turned 22. Now, I know what you're thinking. Linda, you sound like you have the perfect family. But let me tell you something. Appearances can be deceiving. You see, for most of my adult life, I've been the invisible woman in my own family, the one who kept everything running smoothly while everyone else took the credit, the one who sacrificed her dreams, her ambitions, and honestly, her entire identity to make sure everyone else could shine. But wait. This story gets so much worse before it gets better, and what I discovered about my own family is going to shock you as much as it shocked me. Let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand just how deep this betrayal goes. When James and I got married 30 years ago, I had just graduated with a degree in business administration. I was ambitious, driven, and I had big plans. I wanted to start my own consulting firm, help small businesses grow, maybe even write a book about entrepreneurship. I was that girl who had color-coded planners and 5-year plans mapped out on my bedroom wall. But then life happened. James had this family construction business that his father had started, and it was struggling, really struggling. The old man was brilliant with his hands but terrible with numbers, and when he passed away suddenly, James inherited not just the business, but also a mountain of debt and a complete organizational mess. "Linda," James said to me one night, about 6 months after we got married, "I need your help. The business is drowning, and I don't know what to do." Now, you guys know me, I'm a fixer. I see a problem, I solve it. So I put my own dreams on hold, rolled up my sleeves, and dove headfirst into saving Morrison Construction. And let me tell you, it was a nightmare. The books were a disaster. Invoices were missing, payments were late, suppliers were threatening to cut us off, and employees were quitting left and right because paychecks were bouncing. I spent 18-hour days reorganizing everything from scratch. I created systems, negotiated with creditors, streamlined operations, and slowly but surely, we started turning things around. But here's the thing that still makes my blood boil from day one. James introduced me to everyone as my wife who helps out with the paperwork. The paperwork. I wasn't just doing paperwork, I was single-handedly saving his entire legacy, but apparently that didn't matter. As the years went by, the business grew. And I mean it really grew. We went from a small operation with 5 employees to a major player in the regional construction market with over 60 employees and contracts worth millions. We were building shopping centers, office complexes, residential developments, the works. And through it all, I was the one managing everything behind the scenes. I handled all the client relationships, negotiated the contracts, managed the finances, hired and trained the staff, and even handled the marketing. I was essentially running a multi-million-dollar company, but according to everyone else, I was just James's wife who's good with numbers. The kids grew up seeing this dynamic, and honestly, that's probably where I made my biggest mistake. I thought I was teaching them about hard work and dedication, but what I was actually teaching them was that mom's contributions didn't matter. That mom was just there to make everyone else's life easier. Marcus, our oldest, joined the company right after college. Business degree, big ideas, and an ego the size of Texas. From his first day, he started talking about modernizing the company and bringing fresh perspectives. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there thinking, "Kid, I've been modernizing this company since before you could tie your shoes." But James was so proud. "Look at our boy," he'd say. "He's got such great ideas. He's really going to take this company to the next level." And me? I was still just the woman who helped with the paperwork. Lily, our daughter, took a different path. She became a social media influencer, and actually she's pretty successful at it. She's got like 200K followers on Instagram, and she makes decent money from sponsorships. But here's the thing that used to drive me crazy. She would constantly post about how grateful she was for her self-made success and how she learned her work ethic from watching her dad build his empire. Her dad's empire. Not our empire, her dad's. Even Jake, our youngest, who's always been the most sensitive of the 3, would talk about how proud he was of his dad's business, and how he hoped to maybe join the company someday after he finishes graduate school. And James? He ate it all up. He loved being seen as the successful businessman, the patriarch who built something from nothing. He'd give interviews to local business magazines, speak at Chamber of Commerce events, and every single time, he'd tell the story of how he inherited a struggling company and turned it into a success story. I used to sit at those events, wearing my best dress, smiling and nodding while my husband took credit for 30 years of my work. And you know what the worst part was? I started believing it myself. I started thinking that maybe I really was just a supporting player in someone else's story. But then something happened that changed everything. And I mean everything. It was about 8 months ago. I was in the office late one night working on a proposal for a huge new project, a luxury residential development that could potentially bring in over $10 million in revenue. I'd been working on this proposal for weeks, researching the client, analyzing the competition, crafting the perfect pitch. I was just putting the finishing touches on the presentation when I heard voices coming from James's office. The door was slightly ajar and I could hear him talking to Marcus. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but you know how it is when you hear your name mentioned, you can't help but listen. "Dad, I really think it's time we made some changes around here," Marcus was saying. "I've been talking to some people and they all agree that having Mom so involved in the business is, well, it's not professional." My heart stopped. I literally felt my chest tighten and I had to grip the edge of my desk to keep from falling over. "What do you mean?" James asked, and I could hear the interest in his voice. "I mean, she's great at the administrative stuff, don't get me wrong, but when clients see her in meetings, making decisions, acting like she's an equal partner, it sends the wrong message. It makes us look like we can't handle our own business." I felt like I was going to throw up. This was my son talking about me like I was some kind of embarrassment. But wait, it gets worse. So much worse. "You know what, Marcus? You might have a point," James said. "I've been thinking the same thing lately. Maybe it's time Linda stepped back and let us handle the business side of things. She could focus on the home, maybe take up some hobbies. She's been working so hard for so long she deserves a break." A break. He wanted to give me a break from the company I had built with my own 2 hands. "Exactly," Marcus continued. "And honestly, Dad, I've been looking at the numbers, and I think we could be even more profitable if we streamlined operations. Maybe brought in some actual professionals to handle the stuff Mom's been doing." Actual professionals. As if I wasn't a professional. As if my 30 years of experience, my business degree, my track record of success meant nothing. "Well," James said slowly, "let's think about this. Maybe we could transition her out gradually, give her some kind of advisory role, something that keeps her involved but doesn't, doesn't make us look weak," Marcus finished. I had to cover my mouth to keep from screaming. These were the 2 most important men in my life, and they were discussing me like I was a problem to be solved, like I was some kind of liability. But then Marcus said something that made my blood run cold. "Dad, there's something else. I've been talking to some potential investors about expanding the business, big investors. And they're interested, but they want to see a more traditional leadership structure. You as CEO, me as COO, maybe bring in someone else for CFO. Clean, professional, family-owned, but family-managed. And Linda? Well, she could be like a silent partner or something. She'd still benefit from the profits, obviously, but she wouldn't be involved in day-to-day operations. These investors, they're talking about potentially doubling our revenue within 5 years, maybe even going public eventually." Going public, with my company. The company I had built from nothing, and they wanted to push me out to make it happen. I sat there in the dark, listening to my husband and son plan my professional execution, and I felt something inside me break. Not just my heart, though, that was definitely shattered, but something deeper. Something that had been holding me back for 30 years. For the first time in my adult life, I felt truly, completely alone. I stayed in that office until almost 3 in the morning, just thinking, processing, trying to figure out how I had gotten to this point, how I had allowed myself to become so invisible that my own family could discuss erasing me from the business like I was just an inconvenience. But you know what? Sometimes the worst moments in our lives become the catalyst for the best changes. And sitting there in that dark office, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to fight for my place in their company. I wasn't going to beg for recognition or respect. I wasn't going to try to prove my worth to people who had already decided I was worthless. I was going to leave, and I was going to take everything I had learned, everything I had built, and I was going to start over. At 52 years old, I was going to bet on myself for the first time in my life. But before I left, I was going to make sure they understood exactly what they were losing. The next morning, I went to the office like nothing had happened. I smiled at James, kissed him goodbye, and told him I hoped he had a good day. I hugged Marcus when he came in and asked about his weekend plans. I was the perfect wife and mother, just like I had been for 30 years. But inside, I was planning my escape. First, I started documenting everything. Every client relationship I had built, every system I had created, every process I had streamlined. I made copies of all my work, all my contracts, all my correspondence. I wanted to make sure I had a complete record of exactly what I had contributed to Morrison Construction. Then I started reaching out to people. Quietly, carefully. I contacted some of the clients I'd worked with over the years, just to check in and see how they were doing. I reconnected with old colleagues from college, people I had lost touch with over the years. I started building a network. And slowly, a plan began to form. You see, one of the things I had learned over 30 years in the construction business was that it's all about relationships. Clients don't just hire you because you're the cheapest or the fastest, they hire you because they trust you. And over the years, I had built incredibly strong relationships with dozens of clients. But here's the thing that James and Marcus didn't realize. Those clients weren't loyal to Morrison Construction. They were loyal to me. I was the one who answered their calls when they had problems. I was the one who made sure their projects were completed on time and on budget. I was the one who handled their complaints, celebrated their successes, and made them feel like they were our most important client. And now, I was going to find out just how much that loyalty was worth. 3 weeks after I overheard that conversation, I made my move. I walked into James's office on a Tuesday morning, closed the door behind me, and sat down across from his desk. "James," I said, "we need to talk." He looked up from his computer with that distracted expression he always wore when I interrupted his work. "What's up, honey? Make it quick, I've got a conference call in 10 minutes. I'm leaving the company." The words hung in the air between us like a bomb that hadn't exploded yet. "What?" He laughed, like I had just told him a joke. "What do you mean, leaving the company? You can't leave the company. You're part of the company." "No, James, I'm not part of the company. I'm just the woman who helps with the paperwork, remember? And you know what? You're right. It's time for me to step back and let you handle the business side of things." His face went pale. "Linda, what are you talking about? Of course you're part of the company. You're essential to everything we do here." "Am I? Because 3 weeks ago, I heard you and Marcus discussing how my involvement was unprofessional and made you look weak. I heard you planning to transition me out and replace me with actual professionals." The color drained from his face completely. You heard that?" "Every word. And you know what, James? You're absolutely right. I deserve a break. I deserve to pursue my own interests. I deserve to work somewhere that values my contributions." "Linda, please, you can't just leave. This is our business, our family business." "No, James, this is your business, your family business. You've made that very clear over the past 30 years. I'm just the wife who helps with the paperwork." I stood up and walked toward the door, but before I left, I turned back to him. "Oh, and James? I'm not just leaving the company, I'm starting my own." The look on his face was something I'll never forget. Pure panic mixed with disbelief, like he was watching his entire world crumble and couldn't understand why. "You can't do that," he whispered. "You can't compete with us. We're family." I smiled then, the first genuine smile I had felt in years. "You're right, James. We are family. And maybe it's time I started acting like family means something." I walked out of that office, and I didn't look back. But let me tell you, the real drama was just beginning. Because what happened next shocked everyone, including me. That afternoon, I sent an email to 12 of Morrison Construction's biggest clients. 12 companies that represented about 40% of our annual revenue. The email was simple and professional. Dear client name, I hope this email finds you well. I wanted to personally inform you that I will be leaving Morrison Construction effective immediately to start my own consulting firm. It has been an absolute pleasure working with you over the years, and I want to thank you for the trust you've placed in me. I understand this news may come as a surprise, and I want to assure you that I will do everything possible to ensure a smooth transition of your projects. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. Thank you again for your business and your friendship. Warm regards, Linda Morrison. I sent that email at 3:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. By 5:30 p.m. I had received responses from 8 of those 12 clients. And every single one of them wanted to know if they could hire me instead. But here's where it gets really interesting. Remember that big luxury residential development I mentioned? The $10 million project I'd been working on? Well, the client for that project was a company called Hartwell Developments, and I had been working directly with their CEO, Rebecca Hartwell, for months. Rebecca and I had developed what I thought was a good working relationship, but I had no idea just how good until I got her response to my email. Linda, she wrote, I was wondering when you were going to make this move. I've been in business for 20 years, and I can always tell when someone is undervalued by their own company. I'd like to schedule a meeting with you as soon as possible to discuss bringing you on as our exclusive construction consulting partner. We have 12 projects in development over the next 3 years, worth approximately $40 million. I'd rather work with you than Morrison Construction any day of the week. $40 million. She was offering me $40 million worth of business. I had to read that email 3 times before it sank in. This woman was offering me more business than Morrison Construction typically handled in 2 years, and she was doing it because she valued my work, my expertise, my relationship with her company. I called her immediately. Rebecca, it's Linda. I just got your email and I have to ask, are you serious? She laughed. Linda, I've been waiting for you to leave that company for years. Everyone in the industry knows that you're the real talent behind Morrison Construction. James is a nice guy, but you're the one who makes things happen. You're the one who solves problems. You're the one who delivers results. I had no idea you felt that way. Honey, the whole industry feels that way. We all talk to each other, you know. And we've all been wondering why someone with your skills was content to stay in the background while other people took credit for your work. I felt tears welling up in my eyes. For 30 years, I had been told that I was just a helper, just a supporter, just someone who helped with the paperwork. And here was a successful businesswoman telling me that everyone in the industry knew I was the real talent. So, Rebecca continued, are you interested in taking on some real challenges? Because I've got plenty of them. Yes, I said without hesitation. Yes, I'm very interested. Good. Let's meet tomorrow morning. I'll have my lawyers draw up a consulting agreement. We'll start with the Hartwell Oaks project, you know, the one you've been working on for Morrison Construction. Except now, you'll be working on it for yourself. After I hung up the phone, I sat in my car for about 10 minutes, just trying to process what had just happened. In the span of one afternoon, I had gone from being an unpaid, undervalued employee to having a $40 million consulting contract offered to me. But you know what? I was just getting started. Over the next few days, the responses kept coming in. Client after client reached out, wanting to know if I would be available to work with them. Some wanted to hire me for specific projects, others wanted to bring me on as a consultant, and a few even offered me full-time positions with their companies. By the end of the week, I had received inquiries representing over $60 million in potential business. $60 million. Meanwhile, back at Morrison Construction, chaos was erupting. James called me every day, begging me to come back. Linda, please, we can work this out. You're right, I haven't appreciated you enough. Let's talk about making you an official partner. Let's talk about profit sharing. Let's talk about whatever you want. But it was too late. I had already tasted what it felt like to be valued, to be respected, to be seen as the professional I had always been. And there was no going back. The breaking point came when Marcus called me. "Mom, what the hell are you doing? You're destroying our family business." "No, Marcus," I said calmly. "I'm building my own business. There's a difference." "But you're stealing our clients." "I'm not stealing anything. These clients are choosing to work with me because they value my services. If Morrison Construction can't compete with a 52-year-old woman working out of her home office, maybe the problem isn't with me." "This is ridiculous. You can't just leave and expect to succeed on your own. You need us." And that's when I said the words that I wish I could have said 30 years earlier. "No, Marcus, you need me. And now you're going to find out what it's like to run a business without me." I hung up the phone, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly free. But wait, because this story is far from over. What happened next is going to blow your mind. And honestly, it's the part that still makes me wake up some mornings wondering if this is all just a dream. The first month after I left Morrison Construction was like a whirlwind. I was working 18-hour days again, but this time, it was for myself. I was building something from the ground up, creating systems, establishing processes, and most importantly, delivering results for my clients. I officially launched Morrison Consulting Group. Yes, I kept the Morrison name, because like it or not, I had earned it. And within 4 weeks, I had signed contracts worth $12 million. $12 million. I was making more money in a month than I had made in 5 years at Morrison Construction. But the real victory wasn't financial. It was personal. For the first time in 30 years, I was waking up excited about work. I was challenged, I was appreciated, and I was making decisions that mattered. I was building relationships based on mutual respect rather than family obligation. I was finally being seen for who I really was. And the clients? They were thrilled. Rebecca Hartwell told me that working with me directly had cut her project management time in half and increased her confidence in the outcomes by 100%. Other clients were referring me to their colleagues, and my reputation was spreading throughout the industry. But here's the thing that really surprised me. I wasn't just succeeding in spite of leaving my family business. I was succeeding because I had left my family business. All those years of being undervalued, of being told I was just a helper, of being made to feel like my contributions didn't matter, it had actually made me stronger. It had made me more determined, more resourceful, more creative. I had learned to solve problems with limited resources, to build relationships despite being overlooked, and to deliver results even when I wasn't getting credit. And now, all of those skills were working in my favor. Meanwhile, back at Morrison Construction, things were falling apart. Fast. The first sign of trouble came when the Hartwell Oaks project fell through. Without me managing the relationship, Rebecca had decided to take her business elsewhere. That was a $10 million loss right there. Then, one by one, other clients started pulling out. Some cited concerns about project management, others mentioned communication issues, and a few were brutally honest about the fact that they had been working with Morrison Construction because of me, not because of James or Marcus. Within 6 weeks of my departure, Morrison Construction had lost nearly 50% of its client base. James was calling me multiple times a day now, and his tone had shifted from pleading to desperate. "Linda, you have to help us. We're losing everything. The employees are worried about their jobs. The suppliers are demanding payment up front. We might have to close." "I'm sorry to hear that, James, but I'm sure you and Marcus will figure it out. After all, you're the actual professionals, right?" "Please, Linda. I know I was wrong. I know we didn't appreciate you, but we can't do this without you." "You're right, James, you can't. But you made your choice when you decided I was unprofessional and embarrassing. Now you get to live with the consequences." It sounds harsh, and maybe it was. But I had spent 30 years making excuses for people who didn't respect me, and I was done. The final nail in the coffin came when I found out that Marcus had been telling people in the industry that I was sabotaging the family business and that I was bitter about being gently transitioned out. Gently transitioned out. Can you believe that? He was actually trying to rewrite history to make it sound like my leaving was their idea. So I decided it was time to set the record straight. I called a meeting. Not with James or Marcus. I was done talking to them. I called a meeting with the Regional Construction Association, the professional organization that James loved to brag about being a member of. The same organization where he had given all those speeches about building his empire from nothing. I'd like to address some rumors that have been circulating about my departure from Morrison Construction, I told the president of the association, and I think it's important that the industry understands the truth about what happened. They scheduled me for their next monthly meeting. 50 of the most influential people in the regional construction industry would be there, including several of Morrison Construction's former clients, current competitors, and potential partners. James found out about the meeting 2 days before it was scheduled to happen. He showed up at my house, the house I was still living in, by the way, because I was planning my exit from that situation too, and he was angrier than I had ever seen him. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Linda? You can't air our dirty laundry in public like this." "I'm not airing dirty laundry, James. I'm setting the record straight. Your son has been telling people that I was gently transitioned out and that I'm sabotaging the business. I think it's time people knew the truth." "The truth? The truth is that you're destroying everything we built together." "No, James. The truth is that you're destroying everything I built while you took credit for it. And now you're finding out what happens when the person who actually runs your business decides to leave." He stared at me for a long moment, and I could see something shift in his expression. The anger was still there, but underneath it, I saw something else. Fear. "Linda, please, don't do this. We can work something out. I'll make you a full partner. I'll give you 50% ownership. I'll put your name on the building. Whatever you want." "James, 6 months ago, that might have been enough. But now I know what I'm worth. And I'm worth a lot more than 50% of a business that's falling apart without me." The night of the meeting, I wore my best suit. The same one I had worn to all those Chamber of Commerce events where James had taken credit for my work. But this time, I was the one behind the podium. "Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Linda Morrison, and for the past 30 years, I have been the operations manager, client relations director, and chief financial officer of Morrison Construction. I've also been the wife of James Morrison and the mother of Marcus Morrison." I paused and looked out at the audience. I could see James and Marcus sitting in the back row, both looking like they wanted to disappear into the floor. "I'm here tonight because there have been some misunderstandings about my recent departure from Morrison Construction, and I believe it's important for the industry to understand the truth about what happened." I spent the next 20 minutes laying out the facts. I talked about the financial turnaround I had orchestrated when I first joined the company. I presented data showing the correlation between my involvement in client relationships and the company's growth. I showed charts demonstrating how the company's project success rate had improved dramatically after I implemented new management systems. And then I told them about the conversation I'd overheard, about how my own husband and son had decided I was unprofessional and embarrassing and needed to be transitioned out to make room for actual professionals. The room was dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. "I want to be clear," I continued. "I am not here to disparage Morrison Construction or to discourage anyone from working with them. I am here to set the record straight about my contributions to that company and to address the rumors that I somehow sabotaged their business by leaving." I paused and looked directly at Marcus, who was slouched in his chair like he was trying to become invisible. "I did not sabotage Morrison Construction. I simply stopped doing the work that was keeping it successful. And if a business cannot survive without one person, a person who is supposedly just helping with paperwork, then perhaps the problem is not with that person's departure, but with the business's dependence on unrecognized contributions." The applause started slowly, but it built. By the time I finished, the entire room was on their feet, clapping. People were nodding, smiling, and several women in the audience were wiping away tears. After the meeting, I was surrounded by people wanting to talk to me. Business owners who had similar stories, women who had felt undervalued in their own companies, and most importantly, potential clients who were impressed by my presentation and wanted to discuss working with Morrison Consulting Group. I scheduled 7 new client meetings that night. 7. James and Marcus left without speaking to me. But as they were walking out, I heard Marcus say to his father, "We're screwed, aren't we?" And honestly, they were. Within 3 months of that meeting, Morrison Construction had lost 75% of its client base. The luxury residential development project that I had been working on? Rebecca Hartwell officially terminated their contract and hired me instead. The shopping center project that was supposed to be their biggest job of the year? The client decided to go with one of their competitors after expressing concerns about management instability. Meanwhile, Morrison Consulting Group was thriving. I had hired 3 employees, leased a small office space, and was booking projects 6 months in advance. I was making more money than I had ever dreamed of, and more importantly, I was having fun. For the first time in my adult life, I was working with people who valued my input, respected my expertise, and treated me like the professional I had always been. I was attending industry conferences as a speaker, not as someone's wife. I was being quoted in trade publications as an expert, not as the woman behind the man. And the best part? I was finally building something that was truly mine. But you know what? The story doesn't end there. Because while I was building my new life, my old life was completely falling apart. And I mean completely. The financial problems at Morrison Construction were just the beginning. Without me managing the books, James had no idea how much money was actually coming in or going out. He had always trusted me to handle the finances, and apparently, he had never bothered to learn how to do it himself. By month 4, they were behind on payroll. By month 5, they were behind on rent. By month 6, they were facing bankruptcy. The employees people I had hired and trained and worked with for years started calling me. They wanted to know if I was hiring, if I could help them find other jobs, if I had any advice for them. "Linda, I don't understand what's happening," said Sarah, who had been our office manager for 8 years. "Mr. Morrison keeps saying everything is fine, but we haven't been paid in 3 weeks. Half the suppliers won't deliver materials anymore, and Marcus is acting like he's running the company, but he doesn't seem to know what he's doing." I felt terrible for these people. They were good employees who had gotten caught in the middle of a family drama that had nothing to do with them, so I did what I could. I hired 3 of them to work for Morrison Consulting Group, and I helped the others find positions with other companies. But James and Marcus? They were on their own. The breaking point came when James showed up at my office one day in November. He looked terrible, unshaven, exhausted, and defeated in a way I had never seen before. "Linda, I need to talk to you." "James, we've talked multiple times. I've made my position clear. Please, just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I let him into my office. He sat down across from my desk and looked around at the space I had created, the awards on the wall, the photos of successful projects, the team of people working diligently at their desks. "This is impressive," he said quietly. "You've really built something here." "Thank you. I came here to tell you that we're closing Morrison Construction." Even though I had expected this, hearing him say it out loud was still shocking. This was the company that had defined our family for 30 years. The company that had paid for our house, our kids' education, our entire lifestyle. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and I meant it. Despite everything that had happened, I didn't take pleasure in seeing the business fail. "I also came to tell you that you were right. About everything. I never appreciated what you did for the company. I never gave you the credit you deserved. And I let Marcus convince me that your contributions weren't important." He paused and rubbed his face with his hands. "I've been such an idiot, Linda. I had the most talented business partner in the world, and I treated her like she was just your wife who helped with the paperwork." He winced. "Yeah, that." We sat in silence for a moment. Then he asked the question I had been expecting. "Is there any chance we could work together again?" I know I don't deserve it, but maybe I could work for you? I'm good with the hands-on construction stuff. I could be a project manager or something." I looked at this man who had been my husband for 30 years, who had dismissed my contributions for decades, who planned to push me out of the business I had built, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not love. Just nothing. "James, I appreciate the apology, I really do. But I can't work with you. Not professionally, and honestly, not personally either." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I want a divorce." The words came out before I had fully processed them, but as soon as I said them, I knew they were true. I had been so focused on building my new business that I hadn't fully confronted the reality of my marriage. But sitting there, looking at James, I realized that I couldn't go back to being the woman who made excuses for people who didn't respect her. "Linda, please. I know I screwed up, but we can work through this. We've been married for 30 years. "Yes, we have. And for most of those 30 years, you've treated me like I was lucky to be married to you instead of recognizing that you were lucky to be married to me. I'm done with that dynamic, James. I'm done being grateful for crumbs when I deserve the whole meal." He left my office that day looking like a broken man, and honestly, I felt bad for him. But I also felt free. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. I got the house, half of our savings, and most importantly, I got my independence. James moved in with his brother and took a job as a project manager with one of our former competitors. Marcus moved back home and started working at a local hardware store. And me? I kept building. Morrison Consulting Group grew beyond my wildest dreams. Within 2 years, I had 15 employees and was handling projects in 3 states. I had been featured on the cover of Regional Business Magazine as Entrepreneur of the Year. I had spoken at conferences across the country about business development and women in construction. I had become the success story I had always dreamed of being. But the most satisfying moment came at last year's Regional Construction Association annual banquet. I was being honored with their Lifetime Achievement Award for my contributions to the industry. As I stood at the podium, looking out at an audience of my peers, I saw James and Marcus sitting at a table in the back. They looked small, not physically, but in every other way. James was still working as a project manager, making a fraction of what he used to make. Marcus had bounced between several jobs and was currently working as a sales associate at a building supply company. Meanwhile, I was standing at the podium, accepting an award for lifetime achievement, representing a company that had generated over $50 million in revenue since I started it 4 years earlier. "Thank you for this incredible honor," I said into the microphone. "When I started Morrison Consulting Group, people told me I was crazy to leave a stable family business to start over at 52. They said I was too old, too set in my ways, too dependent on others to succeed on my own." I paused and looked directly at James and Marcus. "But you know what I've learned? It's never too late to bet on yourself. It's never too late to demand the respect you deserve. And it's never too late to build something that truly belongs to you." The applause was thunderous, but more importantly, I felt something I had never felt before in my entire life: complete, total, unshakable confidence in my own worth. After the ceremony, dozens of people came up to congratulate me. Business leaders, former clients, colleagues, and friends. But the conversation that meant the most to me was with a young woman named Amanda who worked for one of my competitors. "Mrs. Morrison," she said, "I just wanted to thank you for everything you've done for women in this industry. My boss has been treating me like I'm just there to answer phones and make coffee, but watching your success has given me the courage to start my own business. I'm putting in my notice next week." I looked at this young woman. She couldn't have been more than 25, and I saw myself 30 years ago, ambitious, talented, and ready to change the world. "Amanda," I said, "if you ever need advice or mentorship, or just someone to talk to about the challenges of starting your own business, please don't hesitate to call me. We women need to support each other." She smiled, and I could see tears in her eyes. "Thank you. That means everything to me." As I drove home that night, I thought about how different my life had become. 4 years ago, I was an invisible woman in my own family, working 18-hour days for people who didn't appreciate me. Now I was running a multi-million-dollar business, mentoring young women, and living life on my own terms. But the best part? I was finally happy. The kids and I have a complicated relationship now. Lily, surprisingly, was the first to reach out after the divorce. She apologized for not recognizing my contributions over the years and asked if we could have a relationship separate from all the business drama. We have lunch once a month now, and she's actually become one of my biggest supporters. Jake, my youngest, took longer to come around. But last year, he asked if he could do an internship at Morrison Consulting Group during his summer break from graduate school. He's brilliant, and unlike his father and brother, he actually appreciates what I've built. Marcus? Well, Marcus is still angry. He blames me for destroying the family business and breaking up the family. He's convinced that I'm the villain in this story. But you know what? I don't care anymore. I spent 30 years trying to make everyone else happy at the expense of my own happiness. I'm done with that. And James? We're cordial when we see each other at family events, but that's about it. He's remarried now, a woman who works as a receptionist at his current company. I wish him well, but I don't miss him. How can you miss someone who never really saw you in the first place? So that's my story. The story of how my family told me I was nothing without them, and how I proved them wrong by building something incredible on my own. Today, Morrison Consulting Group has 23 employees and is on track to generate $75 million in revenue this year. We've been named one of the fastest-growing companies in the region for 3 consecutive years. I've been invited to speak at Harvard Business School about entrepreneurship and women in business. And most importantly, I wake up every morning excited about the day ahead. I know some of you might think I was too harsh on my family, that I should have tried harder to work things out, or that I should have been more forgiving. But here's the thing I've learned. You can't force people to value you. You can't make someone respect you. You can't convince someone to see your worth if they've already decided you're worthless. What you can do is decide to value yourself. You can decide to demand respect. You can decide to build something that belongs to you and no one else. And sometimes the best thing you can do for everyone involved is to walk away and let them figure out how much they needed you by experiencing life without you. I'm 56 years old now, and I'm just getting started. I'm working on a book about women in business, I'm mentoring dozens of young entrepreneurs, and I'm building a company that will outlast me and continue to create opportunities for others. My family said I was nothing without them, but you know what I discovered? I was everything, and they were nothing without me. And that, my friends, is the most empowering realization a person can have. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it inspires some of you to take a hard look at your own lives and ask yourselves, are you being valued? Are you being respected? Are you building something that belongs to you? If the answer is no, then maybe it's time to make some changes. Trust me, it's never too late to bet on yourself. And when you do, you might just be amazed at what you're capable of achieving. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt undervalued or unappreciated? How did you handle it? What advice would you give to someone who's struggling with similar issues? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one and I try to respond to as many as I can. And if you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I've got so many more stories to share with you, and I promise they're all just as crazy as this one. Until next time, remember, you are worth more than you think, you are capable of more than you know, and you deserve to be valued for who you are, not just for what you can do for other people. Take care, everyone. I'll see you in the next video.